Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to another Friday for our Friday community message today. My name is Wali Abdul Hanifzai, and I want to thank you all for continuously watching our programs and following us on a regular basis. For this week, we have somebody very special with us. Her name is Bushra Bangee, who graduated from the University of California, Irvine, with a degree in urban and regional planning. She currently works in affordable housing and community engagement. She serves as a board member of the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California, as well as the Muslim Student Association West, which is also known as MSA West. Over the past 5 years, she helped establish MSA West, a student-led grassroots organization, nonprofit organization here in California. She's passionate about the interactions of planning, building environments, and environmental justice. So with all due respect, and let's please have Ms. Bushra Bangee here that's with us. So thank you so much for joining us for today.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Wali. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me and for all that you do with ShuraTV. It's a pleasure being able to finally be on ShuraTV. I know we always talk about it at Shura Council, and so it's nice to be able to actually see it, live like this. So thank you so much for all that you do and for this opportunity.
Thank you. And the goal is to try to get each and every member of the board to come and and really share your guys' experience, right? Mm-hmm. It's very important for the community to know how did you get into the Shura Council, and what is even your role outside of the Shura Council. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I really hope to get from every single board member that we have. And thank you for being giving us your time for today's program.
Yeah, of course. Alhamdulillah.
So let's get started. I just wanted to ask you, the first question that I had is basically, what is MSA/MSA West, and what is its purpose in college and university campuses?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So MSA, to start off, the Muslim Student Association, or the Muslim Student Union, was first established on different colleges campuses in the late 80s, or early 80s, around across the country. We actually have historical records of the first MSAs being established in California in around the early 90s here, and what ended up leading to is a network of MSAs from across different campuses throughout the state got together, and they were like, we're all trying to build a community for Muslim students on campus. How about we connect with one another and create a network? And so from that, it turned into MSA West. And so MSA West, for the past 15 years it's been here for around 20 something years now. But for the first 15 years was really just a networking organization to kind of build a coalition of different MSAs throughout the state of California. We currently represent around 30 MSAs in the state of California. So that's nearly around 3,000 Muslim students. And in 2014, we became a nonprofit, and now have shifted our gears to being a more networking organization, to being more resource-based for college students, and seeing how we can support MSAs in order for them to help support their Muslim students on college campuses in institutional development, career development, advocacy, and of course, mental health.
Awesome. Now I was going to ask is, what is your role in the MSA West?
Yeah, so I actually started off while I was at UC Irvine. I was involved in the Muslim Student Union on campus, but then I as well decided, some people who were at MSA West were like, hey, you want to get involved in MSA West? And I was like, sure. I had heard about it. It's known for its big, large annual conference, but it's actually a lot more than that. And so I ended up serving on the board of the student board for about a year, and then later became president my last year at UCI. And then now I'm currently sitting on the board of trustees. So there's the student board, which has a 1-year term for the board of directors. And then for the nonprofit, we have a board of trustees, which is made up of young professionals and different professionals who have different expertises, and so I'm currently serving on the board of trustees.
Nice, very good. And the question I had was, now, how did you get involved? I know MSA West was there when you were in college, but what made you want to pursue it more?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that question, because it's like, you can get involved in the MSA, you can get involved in so many other things. Why MSA West? Well, MSA West, I think, is really interesting because you get to, on a personal level, I really loved it because I got to meet with some of the cream of the crop in the community across the state. You meet young people. The president last year for the student board is now at Harvard studying, mashallah. There's like so many people who have come through the MSA West pipeline. Zahra Billu, Sheikh Muslima, Sheikh Jamal, so many people that are now serving in a variety of different capacities in different organizations in our community. And so MSA West really it has a very unique culture, and you don't have to be a particular type of Muslim, to join MSA West, which is really nice. And it provides all types of young Muslim students the opportunity to really grow in their Islam, as well as, serve the community. And when it comes to MSA West, you're talking about building out a nonprofit. So I think MSA West is kind of cool in that you, when you're working with the organization, you're really building out an organization that is student-led and for students. So it's by students for students. And really, when you see similar types of organizations like this across the country, they're not really run by students. This is very much student-centric. We have one staff member. We're hoping to grow, inshallah. But even on our board of trustees, we have 3 student representatives on our board of trustees to ensure that the student voice is in every level of the organization. And we're trying to we do long-term development for the Muslim student community. So what that means is, trying to build out Muslim student resource centers, being able to one day to be able to have Muslim student housing on campus, being able to one day make sure that, halal food is like just a staple, it's not even a conversation anymore, things like that. A lot of other communities have really been successful at doing this, like the Jewish community, the Mormon community, other communities. And so we want to basically do that as well. And that's what MSA West's function is.
Great. This is great work that you guys are doing. And again, keep up the great work on this. I was going to say something interesting. You said that, as Muslims, we come from different walks of life, and they partake in MSA West. But is there room, or are non-Muslims welcomed to participate in MSA West?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in terms of the actual organization, I don't believe that there's very many non-Muslims that have been involved. We have had, non-Muslims who have been involved, who are interested in Islam, who will later end up, converting to Islam. It really is with MSA West. We are working with MSAs. And so are there non-Muslim students involved in their MSAs? If there are, then naturally they'll be involved in MSA West, maybe depending on their level of engagement. But it really is like from an MSA level, we're just reflecting what MSA is. Similar to Shura Council, actually, I think we're reflecting our members. And so with the MSAs, I think that's the question is, are there non-Muslims involved in the MSAs? Are there non-Muslims involved in MSU? For us, when I was an undergrad, UCI's MSU was very involved on campus. We actually ended up, we worked with a lot of different non-Muslim groups, with the Student Outreach and Retention Center, with student government, and we were able to establish a food pantry that later turned into a basic needs hub, which basically provides food and basic needs for thousands of students every month now. And it's a part of the legacy of the institution of this center on campus that Muslim students were there, part of it. So I think it's a necessary thing that we have non-Muslims involved, because I think that it shows that Muslims are a big part of the community and an asset. But in terms of whether or not it happens, that is more so of something that we're working on, I guess. It's fascinating stuff. And something that also intrigued me here is that when I was in college, I did hear of MSA, right? I was part of MSA, where I studied at USC. Now, the question I had is, what is the difference between MSA and MSA West? Yeah, so MSA is like the individual chapters on college campuses. So they're all function differently. The UCI MSU is going to be different than the UCLA MSA in terms of what they do, how they function. MSA West is more so a larger student umbrella organization, which has its own board, creates its own programming to service both Muslim students as well as support the MSAs. So a lot of times, MSAs will have needs for funding, or will need things like, they're doing advocacy work on campus, and so they need guidance on that. So they go to MSA West. So MSA West is basically their resource, their go-to, I guess, in a lot of ways in terms of things that they need longer term, because a lot of times MSAs, it's really hard because you have a 1-year term and students are in and out, right? So it's really hard to maintain stability in the MSA versus MSA West then steps in and is able to support MSAs to make them more stable and long term.
Gotcha. Hey, thank you for explaining that. Makes much sense, and it's kind of nice because you're backing each other up, and there's always two different bodies that are moving the functioning of students in campuses. Now, the question I wanted to ask you is, how often do you interact with college students at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty much right now it's daily as a board member because we work very closely with the student board. So the board of trustees and the board of directors work very closely, and we are generally doing things like, building out the financial infrastructure of the organization, thinking about strategic planning for the organization, as well as just doing programs. This year, or actually in the past 2 years, they've developed, the students have developed a couple of new programs, which are very interesting. One of the programs that I helped spearhead, and I'm very proud of the students for doing, is the ISA cohort. And ISA stands for the Islamic Sacred Activism Cohort. And it's basically an effort to try to train Muslim college students on engaging in activism and organizing through an Islamic prophetic lens. And so they have a variety of different trainings that they do with local scholarship. Ustad Fuad al-Guhri from the Majlis, they'll have people from Institute of Knowledge, as well as other shuyukh throughout from Zaytuna and throughout California, who go over a variety of different topics for these students and get them trained in order to make sure that they are engaged in sacred activism. And then another program that we're doing is this year is the Tarbiyah cohort. And the Tarbiyah cohort is actually meant to, give students the opportunity to gain a foundation, a bare minimum foundation in Islam and learning Islam, in order to kind of set the foundation for whatever else that they're doing, both in career as well as, in whatever they're doing on campus, just to kind of help them build that framework. So those are a couple of programs that we work with them on.
Great. Amazing programs. Now that you are in contact with these college students on a day-to-day basis, I was going to ask you, what are some common thoughts from college students on how their lives have been with the pandemic?
Yeah. Things have changed big time, for sure. I mean, all of our lives have changed, but especially with college students, it's really unfortunate, especially for the graduating seniors of this past year and
or
for
newcomers.
Or newcomers, exactly.
You want to live on campus, but they can't now.
They can't. I know. It's a very different college experience. But yeah, when COVID first came out back in March, we actually sent out a needs assessment. So we were like, we think students are really struggling, but we don't really know what's going on. So let's just do a needs assessment and gather some data, some bare bones data, and basically then that can inform us on what resources we can provide. So we sent out a needs assessment, and we actually, within a week, were able to get over 100 responses, which was really great, from students. And the main things that people were talking about was, one, rent. Rent was their biggest thing. They were like, we can't break our leases with our contracts. It'll impact our credit score, or we'll have to pay more money. And we just lost our own jobs on campus, or our parents have lost their jobs. So we can't pay for that. So rental assistance was number one. Then second, other things were a lot of students who lived off campus or even on campus and moved back home. Their parents had lost their jobs. Their families were struggling. And so they were having to figure out how to, support their family in other ways. So basic needs was a thing. Mental health was a huge thing. A lot of students were the transition back. I'm sure you've had to deal with that with your work as well. Transition back was obviously very difficult for a lot of students, and having to, especially stressful for a lot of graduating seniors who were trying to find jobs and could not find jobs because of the economic crisis that is still ongoing. And then one of the things that not often really talked about, but we have a lot of undocumented students, as well as students that are here from internationally, and their parents, they either lost their jobs internationally, or they themselves couldn't travel back home because their countries had been really affected by COVID. So they were stuck, and they were like, we can't pay for like certain basic needs, and we're stuck here, and we're trying to every month get a job, but like it was very difficult. So MSA West, we did a Launch Good campaign, and our goal was to, in Ramadan, raise $20,000. We were like, okay, let's try to make something feasible. Let's do $20,000, and that will go towards rental assistance and some of these other basic needs based on a case-by-case basis. Alhamdulillah, Brother Wali, we within the first 10 days we were able to raise 20,000, and within the month of Ramadan we were able to raise like $50,000. By the end of the campaign, we also got a couple of large donors. May Allah reward them. We were able to raise around $80,000 for the students. So that was really, really helpful and beneficial. But of course, the issues are ongoing, and especially around like career development. So we've actually been trying to think of alternatives, like either working with institutions that are doing that work, or kind of building out our own programs. That's a more of a longer term strategy, but connecting students to professionals in their fields in order to help them, build out their own opportunities, because a lot of internships and work experiences for the summer fell through for students.
Yeah. It's and thank you for sharing all this great information. And thank you for the great work that you guys are doing. That's really successful. First of all, congratulations for everyone, for MSA West, the students that are here, for being able to raise that much money to help the students that need the support. Mm-hmm. On the same note, you talked about having something like Launch Good for individuals who need services or who need financial services. Mm-hmm. How has MSA West or MSA innovated their services to servicing students' need amidst the pandemic? And just to add on a little more, I know you guys are working on certain programs, but is there mm-hmm. anything in the pipelines at the moment?
Yeah, no, there's so beyond like basic needs and like rental assistance and all of that, we've changed all of our programming to go virtual. The students were very very on top of it when it came to specifically building out mental health programming. Yeah. We did a series of mental health programs to help kind of like students who were needed to like, work through certain situations. We made sure to like utilize free services like ICNA relief services and other services, and let them know about that. That's still currently on the MSA West page. Like we try to push that out because that's really been a huge thing that students have been struggling with. In addition to that, a lot of students feel very lonely. They're not maybe in the most, at home. They're not in the most best environment always. So what we've been trying to do is inter-MSA joint, fun game nights or whatnot, in order to like get students to still have interactions with their colleagues, because they can feel often very isolated and alone. And so it's just to break out of that feeling. And in addition to that, there's also around the campaign time or the election time, we did do a lot of like, we did some, like safety protocols around election, and like making sure that you are taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and of course, like, staying safe. And so that's what we've been kind of focusing on.
And I'm glad that you mentioned mental health. I know that this is something that's very big, but it's also shut down, especially with the Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. If it's not the newer generation, sometimes it is the newer generation, or our parents or our parents. They look at it as a stigmatizing aspect of not to seek services. But have you seen any success rates in these students or within their families' lives when they did seek mental health treatment or counseling treatment, let's say family mm-hmm. services? Because I know there's a negative connotation in the word mental health. People kind of, they kind of go to the worst alternative possible when they say mm-hmm. mental health, instead of saying, hey, I'm just kind of lonely, I need to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, 100%. I completely hear you on that, Brother Wali. I think one of the successes I think I've seen is, I think MSAs and at least the younger generation of folks, have really changed the culture and the conversation around mental health in a lot of ways. Whether they be, also I think kudos to our community for having professionals like yourself and like just continuously growing. There's so many students who I've seen have switched from like, maybe they were pre-med and they were like, now I'm going to go into going into like mental health and whatnot, and a lot of movement towards that. I personally think amongst college campuses, there's been a huge shift and on how people see mental health, and not just from the MSAs, but also from the larger campus itself. Like college campuses are seeing this as a need, and they're talking about it too. And so I think that that's a huge win win for our community is that younger people are realizing, hey, I need to do this. You know, like most of the times people are having to deal with like, you know, family trauma, you know, whatever, political trauma, so on and so forth. I need to do this. And, you know, they're utilizing institutions like IOK, you know, Institute of Knowledge and their chaplaincy program, as well as, you know, on-campus resources and other things. And the Majlis also has their chaplaincy resources and ICNA relief to kind of fill in those needs. But in addition to that, when it comes to kind of like the success rate, I don't know what this, I don't have any data to draw from. I know that we actually teamed up with the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, ISPU, 2 years ago, and did a research study on our conference attendees. So out of the 1,000 attendees, we were able to gather data on 500 of them. And from that small focus group or that small sample size, we were able to you know, get some understandings of what's going on in our larger campus population, student population. And one of the biggest things that they needed was mental health. And that folks felt like comfortable with seeking resources. It was more so just like not knowing where to go or not being able to afford it. That was more so the concern. And for at least from anecdotally, I can say that a lot of people who have you know, utilized even chaplaincy resources as well as mental health resources have seen like a huge impact in their lives in terms of like the benefit of that from on a mental, emotional health level, as well as on a spiritual level, which I think is really important.
Awesome. Now, I know we're coming towards the end of our time with our timing. There's a couple of more questions, but I wanted to ask if someone was interested in getting involved in MSA or MSA West, how can they do that?
Yeah. If you're going to any college campus right now, look up the MSA. You can go to msawest.org. We have all of our members on our member affiliates page. You can go through and see if your campus has a MSA, and then if you do, you can connect to them and you know, follow them on Instagram, follow them on Facebook. They have events going on for sure. Your own MSA. If they don't, then reach out to MSA West. Message them on Instagram. Message them on Facebook. Email us, and we will connect you to your MSA. We will connect you to MSA West. There's constantly on our social media and on our newsletters. We have a newsletter that we send out. We are sending out opportunities for people to get involved through our different cohort programs, different leadership opportunities. We just finished a master class on leadership development. There's always different ways to get involved. So if you just plug in, you'll probably be able to find an opportunity.
Awesome. And then now, what should one anticipate by joining MSA or MSA West? What are the tasks, you know? If you can tell us at least one or two things that, because I know when you do join an organization, when you're trying to join a group, there's a purpose or a mission of it. Any feedbacks or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want a disclaimer to anyone who has not been involved in MSA. It can be difficult because you're dealing with all different types of Muslims, maybe for the first time, but that's the beautiful part of it, is it's about building community. How can Allah has put all of these people together for a certain amount of time for whatever reason. Now you have the opportunity to build community with them and to get to know one another. So being open to that and being prepared for that. And then there's also the opportunity to kind of really do good. Like the whole purpose, why is it important to have a Muslim community on a college campus? One of the questions that we always pose our MSAs when we're doing development with them is, if your MSA didn't exist tomorrow, would the college campus notice? You know, do you guys have an impact on the college campus in any way? Like, are you guys doing good in some way? And so I think the question is, what are the needs in the larger campus, and how can the MSA work to deal with those needs? And what we did, like UCLA was also able to establish a food pantry, and you know, there's other campuses that have worked to establish mental health services through their MSA. So really, how can you be a larger, and that you within the MSA be a larger advocate for your larger community?
Great. And any last thoughts before we conclude, inshallah?
I mean, I think I just want to say, for anyone who is, you know, younger out there in undergrad right now or in grad school even, it's a really tough time, but you know, there are a lot of people who are out there trying to, you know, make it make it as enjoyable and give as many resources as possible. I know career development can be very difficult. And so if you are struggling, please do reach out to your own MSA, but also please do reach out to MSA West. We will try to work with you to get you in contact with people within your field. And there are lots of, I think it can feel very lonely right now as a community and going through the journeys that we're going through. And so it's really important now more than ever to plug in. And if you have that capacity to plug in, because Allah will inshallah open the door for a lot of beauty and for a lot of community.
Absolutely. And thank you so much again for giving us your time and giving the community your time, for sharing your knowledge with us and your experience that you have with the students in the Muslim community here in SoCal and in all of California, basically.
Thank you so much, Brother Wali, for this opportunity. It was a great conversation.
Again, thank you so much. And we want to thank the community again, as always, for always supporting us. Please remember that your support is highly needed. Either be Shura Council, either be other organizations or masajids. Please don't forget that we are in difficult times of need. So please remember to support your local organizations. With that, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.